Hello, I'm Simone Pierosan from Enablement Red Hat.
And I'm Darcie Fitzpatrick from Open Innovation Labs at Red Hat.
And we are here to talk about the User Experience Iceberg.
This is an iceberg diagram that we like to use because it talks about all of the actions and activities that go into user experience design.
Okay, Darcie, and why this diagram is important for organizations?
Well, it's often hard to know everything that a product team is working on. So I like to use this diagram, especially when presenting back to people at a higher level within an organization, because it really goes into what's the 10% of work that we do that falls above the waterline and what's all the work that we do. So this really discusses every step that goes into defining a user experience.
Okay, and when designing a digital product, what are the most important aspects to consider?
Well, that's what we've outlined here. So we have this broken up into about 4 sections. So first we think about concept design. Next we think about information design. After that is interaction design. And then finally we come to visual design.
And what does it mean to do concept design?
I'm glad that you asked, because as you've noticed, this iceberg is a little broader at the bottom. So the concept design is really that high-level ideation of a product solution. It's really kind of broad. There's a lot to think about. So that's where we start when building a digital product.
Okay, and how do we evolve from concept to information design?
I'm glad you asked, because as I mentioned, concept is high level, but how do you turn that into something that a user might interact with? And that's where information design comes in. So this is where we're creating features, and we're thinking about how to organize those features into a user flow that users would take through this concept solution that we've defined.
Okay, Darcie, but when users start to validate these designs?
So the validation is really happening in this next step of interaction design. So as I mentioned, this is where in information design is where we're kind of organizing what those features can be. But in interaction design, that's when we're starting to define what the user interface is. We're also creating wireframes and static prototypes that we would then take into testing to validate with users everything that we've created.
Okay, but something is still not clear for me. What is the real difference between interaction design and visual design?
I'm glad that you asked. So when we were defining the interaction design, a lot of this takes place in what I call black and white or grayscale. So it's really kind of a rough idea of what we're going to create. But as we've gone through validating those ideas, then we're starting to turn it into the visual design. What does it look like? What are the colors? We're adding branding. We're thinking about the front end of the development. And we're actually creating CSS.
Okay, great explanation, Darcie. Do you have some final thoughts for us?
Absolutely. So when thinking about this entire iceberg, what we talk about is really, as I mentioned at the beginning, it's what is that 10% that falls above the waterline? That is what people are seeing, reacting to. So this visual design is really what gets released out there with your product. But what good product teams are thinking about is everything that falls in this entire iceberg. And most of the work is happening that 90% that falls below the waterline.
Okay, and if people need more information about this diagram, how can Red Hat help?
Well, they can reach out to Open Innovation Labs, and our URL is red.ht/labs, or you can talk to your account executive.